Most people start their remodel budget with finishes. What it's going to look like at the end. Things like cabinets, tile, lighting, all the fun decisions. But a well-built budget actually starts much earlier than that. It starts with defining the scope, what you're really trying to accomplish, and making sure the layout and structure support it. Then you account for everything behind the scenes, the systems, the details that make the home function properly. And then you move into finishes. Because the order is what protects your budget. When you skip those early steps, that's when you start seeing surprises, delays, and changes mid-project. But when it's planned correctly from the beginning, the process is smoother, and the results hold up long-term. At the end of the day, a good budget isn't about spending less, it's about spending in the right order. Reality TV has done a great job making remodeling look fast, simple, and honestly, way more predictable than it really is. We're fans of those shows ourselves, especially Fixer and Fabulous. This isn't a critique of HGTV, just a comparison. We're actually using one of those projects as an example, just to compare it to a real-life model we completed, so you can see how these numbers actually work in the real world. So, in both cases, the homes were purchased and remodeled in the same year, and both projects invested about 40% of the total value into the remodel. So on paper, they look really similar. But here's where they start to differ. The TV project shows up about $160,000 remodel completed in 5 weeks. Our real project, just over $400,000 and about 18 weeks. And neither one is wrong. They're just built in completely different contexts. A big part of that comes down to location and market. Building in Bentonville, Arkansas is very different than building in Tigard, Oregon. Labor costs, material costs, permitting, all of that impacts the final number. And then there's what happens behind the scenes. In real projects, you're addressing electrical, plumbing, insulation, structural updates, things you don't always see, but that are critical to how the home performs long-term. On top of that, shows often have sponsored partnerships that can help reduce costs, like discounted materials, appliances, or furnishings when they're featured in the project. So the numbers you see aren't always a full reflection of market pricing. So the takeaway isn't that one is better than the other. It's that remodel costs aren't just about what it looks like at the end. They're about location, conditions, and what's happening behind the walls. Not every part of your remodel needs the same level of investment, but that doesn't mean cutting corners. There are areas where you can be more flexible, things like lighting, doors, or even using prefabricated vanities, especially if you're planning ahead so they can be upgraded later. But where you don't want to compromise is anything tied to how your home functions day to day. Custom cabinetry that fits your layout, plumbing that supports how you actually use your kitchen, replacing windows while everything is open, and making long-term decisions like curbless showers. And most importantly, updating what's behind the walls while you have access. A good rule of thumb is this: if it would be difficult or disruptive to replace later, it's worth doing right the first time, because a smart budget isn't about cutting, it's about prioritizing.